instant gratification is not really real. In the grand scheme of things, it's not the thing that will actually push you forward. And you have to like really get used to delayed gratification. And I think a lot of people forget that. And I think for me, what helped me the most was being able to envision myself at the finish line or at the destination that I wanted to be at, even if it's not like a solid finish line, but just at whatever destination I'm looking for. And I allowed myself to like experience the emotion of getting there and allowed myself to really kind of like make it real in my brain so that I could continue whatever I needed to do like in my real life.
Simi,
On
welcome to the
D&D.
show.
Hello.
I'm so excited to have you.
I am very excited to be here.
I actually oddly have been following you for so many years. I
Stop.
think
Don't say
initially on
that.
Twitter,
Oh gosh.
but I also like, I mean, RIP to Twitter, but Twitter
I know.
years
RIP
ago was
Twitter for
such a
real.
different
Yeah.
space.
Yeah.
And then actually met you in person earlier
Yeah.
this
I
year.
know. I can't believe that was our first time
I
meeting
know.
in person. Yeah.
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 In the
Yeah.
same, it was like at the gym. And then later
And
that
then
week, we
later
were at
that
the same
week,
dinner
yeah, yeah, yeah.
because the world is so
My
small.
my best friend actually has been listening to your podcast for the
Oh
longest.
my God.
So I remember she would always bring up your podcast, and I was like, oh, I feel like I've seen her on social media maybe sometimes, but I'm not always a huge podcast listener. So when we met, I was like, oh my God, this is so cool, kind of like connecting those dots. So
Yeah,
yeah, yeah, yeah. She
definitely.
loves your podcast.
Oh, I love
Yeah.
that. You have to tell her hi for
I
me.
will. She'll be very excited that I'm here actually. She's gonna be like, oh my
Yeah,
God.
amazing. So I would love to start off by hearing about a time when you felt really lucky. And this could be a
Ooh.
moment where you
Ooh.
created your own luck
Okay.
or where something felt really aligned for you.
Okay. That's so funny. I feel like I have been feeling rather lucky in my life right now, but I will use a past example just to kick this conversation off.
Okay.
So, before I moved to New York, I was working as a marketing consultant for myself. I was working with various different brands, and I had landed probably my biggest, coolest contract at the time, which was with what we know to be as Afropunk. And it was super cool. I was working, like, as a like, almost like an influencer marketing consultant in a way, and I had to travel to New York a lot to kind of, like, work with the team a little bit, like, see the team, stuff like that. And I remember thinking to myself that I wanted to move to New York, and I was really, like, trying to figure out how to get there. I had tried to live in New York before that for college, but it was way too expensive, so I only did, like, a year there, and I had to go back home. And, so I was in Atlanta, and I was just like, "You know what? Let me figure out how to get to New York." I'm applying for jobs, doing all these things. I also happened to need a job at the time, so I was, like, working out, because my contract was ending. And I was applying. Everyone loved me for the most part, but no one wanted to pay for me to go. So I actually had ended up being like, you know what? Maybe New York is not in my cards right now. Like I think at this point it was maybe August. So I was like, you know what? Let me just focus on Atlanta. Let me graduate school. I was going to Georgia State at the time. And let me just like spend one more year in Atlanta and then I'll go. I'll see if I can go. So I kinda gave up on that, gave up on the dream. I was like, "You know what? Fine. I'm just gonna leave it alone." I started applying to jobs in Atlanta. I happened to get an interview at Red Bull, and they really liked me. I made it all the way through the process, and I really, really needed a job. So I actually was like, "I need this job," And, I was so incredibly, like, afraid of what was gonna happen next in my life because I was feeling so much change already, but I didn't know what was changing. I was like, "Oh my god, I don't understand what's happening. Like, I just need a job." You know what I'm saying? So, I get through the interview process, and they eventually call me, and they tell me, like, "We really, really like you, but unfortunately, we can't hire you because you don't have enough." I think they wanted someone who had, like, sports experience, and it was a comms role for, like, music and sports. And I was like, "Dang, I don't really have sports experience." And I was super depressed. I was like, "Oh my god, I didn't get the job." And at that point, I was feeling very, very unlucky, but something told me that everything was gonna work out. I was like, "You know what? Like, I think I need to just, like, trust in this moment." I feel like whatever is guiding me, God, ancestors, whatever, like, I feel like I need to trust that I am an inherently lucky individual and, like, it's gonna work out. But that didn't stop me from crying for like 2 days, And then, I got a phone call from Red Bull again, and they're like, "Actually, we're hiring in New York for a position. We think it'd be perfect for you. Could you fly up to interview? And we'll, like, fly you up and stuff." And I was like, "Absolutely." I was like, "Absolutely." I go up, I interview, and everything goes well, and they hire me that same week. And then they also paid for me to move from Atlanta to New York. And
Amazing.
I literally could not like, it was the most insane run of my life. I feel like that was when I really realized, like, y anytime that you have doubt, just know that you are a very highly blessed individual. So, yeah.
Ugh, I love that
Yeah.
story.
Yeah, that's how I ended up in New York. So,
Yeah,
yeah, that was,
the
like, 5 years ago.
perfect, like, rejection is redirection,
Yeah,
which ended up
absolutely.
being better than that initial job anyway, because that's what you
Mhm.
really wanted.
Mhm.
I love
Mhm.
that
Yeah, it was
story.
great. It was amazing.
Yes. Okay, and I wanna come back to you currently feeling like you're in a lucky season too. Let's talk
Yeah.
about that too.
I think that, I just turned 30. Shout out to the 30-year-olds.
Yes, happy birthday.
Thank you. And I have been feeling very I think I'm in this space where I'm like, I'm lucky because I have all of these things that I've always had. But for whatever reason, right now, I feel like I'm experiencing them in a way that I've never experienced them before. Like my friends, like I'm like, wow, I just feel so lucky to like be loved by my friends. I feel so lucky to be like surrounded by such beautiful people. And then like even when I look at my life as it is now, like I'm like everything isn't perfect. Like there are some things I would love to change or just like, push forward through, but for the most part I do feel as though when I look at my life I'm like, wow, I have been so lucky to be able to like build the life that I've built and like do the things that I want to do. Like every day I wake up and, like, I can choose a new adventure, and I think that that is, like, one of the coolest things. I think my inner child is very satisfied with, like, who I am right now, so
Mm.
yeah.
That's an incredible feeling and a
Yeah.
beautiful sentiment of that appreciation of things you already have.
Yeah. I think that's why I feel very lucky where I'm like, no matter what's happening, no matter, like, what I do wanna change, and no matter what does happen moving forward, like, you live a very blessed life, so you should be thankful, so yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
Yeah.
And you think your inner child would be excited.
Very excited,
Yeah.
right? I'm like, it just feels so cool. So yeah.
For sure,
Yeah.
for sure. You're freshly 30. Is
Yes.
there anything that you're either looking forward to in your 30s, or have you felt any difference? I mean, you have only been 30 for like a couple weeks, so I know it's
Honestly
fresh.
though, that switch to 30 is wild.
Yeah.
I didn't believe the people when they were saying it. They're like, "Oh yeah, when you turn 30, you're not really gonna care as much. Like things are just gonna feel different." And I was like, "Yeah, yeah, whatever." Like I feel like I've been through so many like metamorphoses in my life where I'm like, I've changed a lot. I've had to transform a lot. I've had to become a lot. So I'm like, what could really feel any different this time around?" But honestly, the more that I was creeping up to 30, I was like, "Wow, I just don't care." Like, I just do not care. I'm like, like, there's a problem, it'll get fixed," like, or I'll get to it when I get to it." Like, the sense of urgency to have everything be perfect kind of just, like, faded away in a sense, and I think maybe that's the switch that everyone was, like, talking about? So yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I felt so similarly when
Yeah.
I entered my 30s, and I also like when people are in their 20s and they express a lot of angst around wanting to figure things out and all of that.
Mhm.
I get it because I was very much that person in my 20s, and then when you
Mhm.
get a little bit older, you just realize you have so much time to figure
Mhm.
things out that there's never any one thing, and so many of the things that we stress about, we realize, like, they pass. It's not that they
Yeah.
don't matter, but they pass. It's
Yeah.
never permanent.
It's never permanent at all, and I think also when you're in your 20s, and you're like a young Black child who really doesn't know what the world has waiting for you, like, I think you maybe struggle to see yourself in the future at times, and I think that was me, especially, like, in my teen years, in my young 20s, like, I was having a hard time seeing myself in the future, and I think it was because I thought that in order for me to, like, reach the future, I had to be a certain version of myself or a certain version that people wanted me to be, and I was so hyper focused on, like, trying to be that version. So now that I'm 30, I'm like, what were you talking about, girl?" Like, like, you can live your life how you wanna live it, and whoever sticks around and whoever wants to be around is gonna be there, and then that's just the end of it. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. When you say that there's a version of yourself that you thought you had to be, what
Mhm.
was that version? And was there a moment where you realized, I don't have to be that? Or was it more
Yeah.
of a gradual knowing?
I think it was a gradual process for sure. I think when you're in your 20s, like, you really think that y I don't know, like, life has to look a certain way. I can only imagine what it's like for the generation that's younger now, where with social media being involved so much. But for us, I think it was like, TV representations, maybe like modeling, things like what we saw in the media here and there, maybe not so pushed into our face, but just enough where we're like looking at to those people as aspirations. I think you think that in order for yourself to have a good life, you have to be similar to those representations or very close to those representations. And I think for me, I didn't really always see an accurate representation of like what I felt internally, but I just felt like, I have to like grow up and go to school and get good grades and like get a good job, probably become a lawyer, doctor, or something like that. Get married, have kids, and like that's what life is supposed to be. And I think my 20s, I feel like I've always been kind of a rebel in a sense that I don't like to follow those rules, but I think in my 20s specifically, it was a very gradual kind of like disentanglement from all of that and like understanding that I can be who I want to be and still have the things that I want to have without necessarily having to sacrifice like my inner self. So yeah.
Mhm, mhm. Yeah,
Yeah.
it is such an unlearning
Yeah.
process. And I think especially for people, those of us who are more of like millennial age, we had this interesting setup where as kids, definitions of things were a lot more narrow. And then
Mhm.
as we entered young adulthood, that was when we had more
Mhm.
exposure to what was possible. But it's
Mhm.
like we still had all of that conditioning and we're figuring it
Mhm.
out in real time. And I feel
Mhm.
like we're all kind of unlearning together.
Yeah, I think more and more people are learning. I don't know. I think we're experiencing such a like, the road is, like, separating in a sense, where it's, like, the people who want to unlearn are going down one way, and the people who are just gonna continue on are going down the other way. But I think for the first time, maybe in a long time, we can clearly see the difference between the 2. Whereas before, it felt like maybe we were all kind of chugging along and, like, solo people were going on their little journeys, but now it feels like there's a large mass of people kind of figuring out what they wanna do and doing it.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah. In real
Yeah,
time.
in real time.
Yeah.
It's wild.
A few minutes ago, you used the word metamorphosis, and I would
Mhm.
love to dig into that a little bit more. And it
Mhm.
also reminded me of something that I saw you write last year, where you
Mhm.
referred to 2024 as a cocoon year for you.
Mhm.
I would
Mhm.
love to kind of get like a follow up to that
Yeah.
of like where you're feeling from a
Yeah.
metamorphosis standpoint.
Yeah. I think that one thing that I really do appreciate about myself is that I am someone who really appreciates change. Like, I think it has always been something that we are taught to resist in a way, maybe. But even though sometimes I'll get anxious about it, at the end of it, I'll appreciate it and be thankful for it and be, just happy that I made it to the other side. And I do consider all of those moments to be a sort of metamorphosis. Um, and for me, I think 2024 definitely was really 2023 into 2024, like closer to like half of 2023 into 2024 was really a stage of my life where I felt like I had to really go inward and figure out like what do I actually want? Like what is it that I desire and what am I willing to do to get there? And are the people around me people that I feel as though don't necessarily have to help me get there, but can support me on the way there? Do they recognize me in all of the ways that I will have to change or that I have changed? Like, is the work that I'm doing a representation of that? Like, I think these were all questions I was asking myself a little bit before my 30th. And some of those questions are not answered. Don't think that you just have all the answers at 30, but I think yeah, for me it was a deep transformational process that really started with how I was like taking care of myself. And I think the more that I was able to kind of build that discipline with myself and allow myself to keep promises that I made for myself, that I made to myself, the more that I was able to kind of like get into that transformation. And now I feel a lot lighter. Like I feel very happy. And it's so weird because it's like, I don't know, like I feel like if I don't know, my accountant were to watch this, they'd be like, girl, you got stuff you gotta do right now. You know what I'm saying? But it's like, I don't know, like I just feel like whatever is next in my life, I feel very capable of handling it. And I feel like I wouldn't feel that way if I didn't have like a cocoon year?
Mhm.
So yeah.
Yeah, yeah, that
Yeah.
makes sense. I love that you mentioned keeping promises to yourself. I
Mhm.
think that's something that can be really hard
Yes. Very
during
hard.
different seasons of life. Was that something that you had to learn how to do? What has helped you keep promises to yourself?
It's something that I still struggle with. Like I think I can keep certain promises to myself. Others I'm still like working on. But I think anyone that is looking to keep promises to themselves, I think you have to remind yourself that instant gratification is not really real. Like in the grand scheme of things, it's not the thing that will actually push you forward. And you have to like really get used to delayed gratification. And I think a lot of people forget that. And I think for me, what helped me the most was being able to envision myself at the finish line or at the destination that I wanted to be at, even if it's not like a solid finish line, but just at whatever destination I'm looking for. And I allowed myself to like experience the emotion of getting there and allowed myself to really kind of like make it real in my brain so that I could continue whatever I needed to do like in my real life, if that makes sense. So yeah.
As soon as the temperature drops and it's time to swap out my summer wardrobe, the first thing I reach for are my favorite Quince sweaters. Their 100% Mongolian cashmere is just elite. It's soft, it's warm, but still looks polished. It's become a staple in my fall and winter wardrobe. I've had their sweaters in rotation for years. And the best part is that you're not paying designer prices for the quality. I'm also in the middle of refreshing my apartment decor, and yes, Quince is coming through for that too. From bedding to kitchenware, it's become my one stop shop for those little upgrades that make such a big difference, but again, are incredible quality, so I know they're built to last. If you're not familiar, Quince partners directly with ethical, top tier factories and cuts out the middlemen to bring you luxury essentials at prices that feel too good to be true. Again, we're talking cashmere from $50, washable silk, perfectly tailored denim, and wool coats that look and feel like they're triple the price. And I have all of these things as part of my fall and winter wardrobe. It's elevated without being over the top, which is exactly the vibe I'm going for this season. Keep it classic and cozy this fall with long-lasting staples from Quince. Go to quince.com/balancedless for free shipping on your order and 365-day returns. That's QUINCE.com/balancedless to get free shipping and 365-day returns. Quince.com/balancedless. I feel like the smartest people I know have a someday idea, the someday store, the someday brand, the someday business. But the truth is, someday stays someday until you start. And that's where Shopify comes in. Whether you've got a product ready to go or just an idea in your notes app, Shopify is the commerce platform that helps you build something real and makes it way less overwhelming. Shopify powers millions of businesses around the world and 10% of all e commerce in the US. That includes household names like Mattel and Gymshark, and solo creators, kitchen table startups, and people just like you and me who decided to go for it. They make the setup simple with hundreds of beautiful, ready to go templates, no design degree required. Their AI tools help you write product descriptions, enhance your photos, and even build out email and social campaigns. It's like having a creative team behind you without actually needing a team, which is so important when you're just getting started. You can also manage everything: inventory, payments, analytics, all in one place. And when you need help, their 24/7 support is actually helpful. So if you've been sitting on an idea that deserves a shot, this is your moment. You can turn your big business idea into with Shopify on your side. Sign up for your $1 per month trial and start selling today at shopify.com/balanceblackgirl. Go to shopify.com/balanceblackgirl. That is shopify.com/balanceblackgirl. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
like such powerful
Yeah.
mindset work,
Yeah.
which I think if anybody reads anything that you write, I think it's very apparent that like
Yeah.
that is something that you are very good
I'm sure
at.
the girls are like, "She's so woo woo," but I'm like, "Ugh, it works though. I don't know what to say,"
It
you know?
does.
Yeah.
It really does. And
Yeah.
just that ability to be able to either visualize or keep yourself anchored, even if what
Mhm.
you want isn't right in front of you right
Mhm.
now. It's what
Mhm.
will keep you going.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's really hard because I mean, it's just getting harder and harder with social media. I think things like AI, social media, just they really kind of warp what we think everyday life or like real life is supposed to look like. And it becomes a struggle when you see people that maybe look as though they've had like this overnight capability of like growing something that you've been working towards for like maybe your whole life, you know? But I think you have to remind yourself that your journey is for you, and the whole point of building that discipline is so that whenever you do get to that destination, you can maintain it. You know, like I think a lot of people forget about the maintenance part. Like they think like, "Oh, I'm just going to do this and like once I get there my whole life is going to be great." And like sure, it might be, but also you have to maintain whatever it is you've gathered at that point. Like you don't harvest things just to harvest them, you know, like you have to figure out how to store them and how to eat them and how to like nourish them so that you can keep eating them. Like an entire process that I think people forget about. And one thing I do recommend to people that are like trying to build discipline with themselves is figure out an activity you can do with your hands. Like, even if it's not anything related to your work, definitely cannot be related to your phone or your computer or technology. Like, it has to be like a very hands-on process, you know? Like, because I think sometimes that helps us feel grounded again, like understanding like, "Oh, I'm doing something with my hands. I'm like this is real life. Like I have to like nourish this or like I have to like put an effort into this and even if it doesn't come out perfect, it's still something that I did." So I think yeah.
Yeah, like making
Yeah, like
something.
making art, like it's like drawing something, coloring something, planting something. Like these are all things that we can do with our hands and I think a lot of people like forget that that's like an important practice to have. So yeah.
It is. It
Yeah.
reminds me of a friend I have who she's really getting into crochet, and it's been
Mm,
really fun to
mhm.
see her journey where she took some classes and
Mhm.
now she's making things and it's purely just for joy, for
Right.
fun, but
Yeah.
that ability to use your hands and get tactile
Yes.
is so
I
important.
agree. Yeah.
Kinda reminds me of that. I don't know if it's like a therapy thing, but I feel like I hear a lot of people say it where if you're feeling anxious, like identifying something you can touch, something you can
Mhm.
smell,
Mhm.
like
Mhm.
getting your senses involved.
Mhm. 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 It's so funny because like I remember this one time I was like having an argument with someone and I was like I could feel myself like getting like out of the space I wanted to be in and I was like I just like stopped mid argument and I was like this is a chair. Like I was like this is a chair. I smell bacon, like, you know, like, and they're like, "What are you doing?" I was like,
Grounding.
"I'm right, because I'm finna cuss you out actually, and I'm trying to, like, help us here." You know what I'm saying? So, like, yeah, I think a lot of people need more grounding practices. So, yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Especially because it is getting so much harder to tell what's real and what's not.
Yeah. It really is getting very scary.
It
Very
is.
scary. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel terrible for the younger generation because I think our generation, like, we got very lucky. Like, we just missed the AI, shenanigans, so for us, it's like, even if not even if, when AI does develop more than it is right now, I think we'll know how to keep ourselves grounded, you know what I'm saying? Whereas, like, the people who are growing up with AI, like, it's becoming very difficult for them to recognize reality from AI reality, and I think that is something that I feel a lot of sympathy for them, honestly, so yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's challenging, and I think that there's so much missed opportunity there with people being able to practice things and get,
Right.
like we've talked about a little bit about writing because you are a
Yeah.
writer. I think about something like writing with students using so much AI to do their
Right?
writing, but part of that practice is learning the mechanics of it and probably writing some
Right.
things that aren't good and learning how to
Right.
make it better. And
Right.
those are important things to
Yep.
go through that when you skip that process, you're missing out on so much.
Yeah. Yeah. I think, I actually had just wrote something for Substack where I was saying, like, even if you do everything right, like, you can't avoid grief or heartbreak. And I think a part of, especially this generation's, like, grief and heartbreak is thinking that they are not making good things, like, or that what they make is not good. And I think, with AI especially involved, like, we really need to remind ourselves that making bad art is a part of the art making process, and it actually is supposed to be bad in the beginning. It's supposed to be a direct representation of all the feelings you're putting into it, which aren't always going to be so neatly polished and perfect. So yeah.
It's necessary.
Yeah.
And it's also a snapshot in time. Even going back and looking at something like an old journal or
Mhm.
something, I love
Mhm.
doing because half the time I'm like, you sound crazy. But it
Right?
also is such a time capsule of who you were
I'm like, "Girl, who
in
was
that
that boy
moment.
you was talking about?" Like
Like it's okay. It's
right,
going to
it's
be
gonna be
okay.
okay.
You
You don't
will
even
be
know his number no
okay.
more.
Right.
Like
And so being able to like have those real snapshots in time
Right,
are
yeah.
so important.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I would love to talk a little bit more about creativity,
Mhm.
particularly through the lens of style,
Oh,
because you
okay.
obviously have amazing style
Thank
and you share so
you.
much of your style
Thank
with us
you.
online. I'd love to talk more about your style
Okay.
journey and how you've cultivated it.
Yeah, so I always tell people my style journey started, one, when I started making more money, because that
Real?
was necessary. Yeah, I was like, I don't wanna sit here and lie to y'all. Like, I know that there are people who are, but I just personally was not one of those, like, thrifters, stuff like that. But the moment I had access to money, I was like, "Ooh, I can play around, I can do what I wanna do," you know what I'm saying? But it also came at a very interesting crossroad with it started when I started gaining weight as well. And I always tell people that I have grown up, in an almond house where everything was like very noticed and also very discussed and also very like tracked and restricted and like it was just a very interesting dynamic to grow up under. So I think for me, I always had a very particular body image of myself. Um, but during the pandemic, I think we all kind of went through a space where we're not moving as much, we're not as active, we're eating whatever we want to eat because we're at home all the time. And my body changed, and internally I was very much okay with it. Like I think I had grown up being an active person, so I wanted to remain active, but the way my body was changing was not something that, like, made me want to hide, and I thought that that was very interesting because the old version of me would have wanted to hide, you know? And I think not only did I not hide, but I was like, "You know what? Let me put on the most colorful outfits that I can find and make this even more of a show," and I did that, and if it were not for the fact I think if I had money, I would have had good style regardless, but if it were not for the fact that I was also experiencing a changing body, I don't think that my style would have evolved the way that it did. And, I always tell people that to encourage them to not wait for the perfect body to explore your style. Like, I think the way that my body pushed me to not only evolve my style, but also be very crafty with the way that I dress myself was something that I don't think I would have had. Like, I don't think that's a skill I would have been able to develop had I not had that experience changing, you know? So, I always tell people, I'm like, "Yeah, my style evolved because I gained weight." Like, and I know people are like, "Oh, that's so bad," but I'm like, "It actually was the best thing for me," you
Yeah.
know? Like, I don't think I would be able to have the eye that I do for style if I didn't have to have that eye, like, on myself at that time, you know? Like, if I could have just worn anything or bought anything, I probably would look just like anybody, you know? So, yeah.
Mhm,
Yeah.
mhm. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
I wanna come back to what you just said about a previous version of yourself that in that scenario would have wanted to hide, the
Mhm.
space that you were in when it actually happened, not wanting to hide,
Mhm.
what the difference was between those 2 versions of you.
I really don't know, actually. I think, well, maybe I do know, actually. Maybe I think at the time, I was also in a relationship, and I think, I hate to give credit to a man, but I do think that being in a space where your desirability doesn't have to be proven in a way really makes you feel so much more free than you maybe once were before, you know? And I think that can be a very complex, like, nuanced conversation, but I think for me, I was just like, I don't, not to say I was performing desirability before, but I think it was like I just didn't care. Like, I already didn't care before I met him, and it's funny because I actually was already gonna not date, like, really like that, and then I met him, and I was like, "Okay, cool." But when I met him and, like, we were together, I was like, "Oh, now I really don't care." Like, I'm like, "Oh, I really don't care who finds me desirable because I got a man, and I really like him, and, like, he really likes me, and, like, who really cares?" You know? Like, the only person I wanna be desirable for is myself, and I think that was why I was able to kind of, like, develop the style I was able to develop because I wasn't thinking about anyone else
Yeah.
besides myself. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
You're doing it for you.
Yeah.
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 And I would love to hear more about, like, from your perspective, how creativity plays into style.
Yeah. So I think for a lot of people, not only do I think creativity plays into style, but I also think identity does as well. And I think for a lot of people, if you don't look at yourself, like your identity as an inherently creative being, that it's going to be really hard for you to look at your style as inherently creative or having the potential to be creative. And I think for me, I don't think that everyone has to be colorful. I don't think everyone has to wear, like, maximalist jewelry like I do. I think that just is what works for me because I find myself to be a very colorful, maximalist person internally, you know? I think style in terms of creativity should always be if you had to, like, draw your internal being on a piece of paper, what would you draw? And then based on what you would draw, how could like, what in your closet would represent that, you know? And I
I love
think
that
that's
question.
yeah, like, I think that to me is where I encourage all people to start when it comes to their style. And sometimes with, different style trends and things like TikTok and stuff like that, people kind of get lost in what other people are wearing or what other people are doing. But in reality, it's okay if it looks like someone else. However, it should not be a complete representation of someone else. Like, you should be able to see yourself in whatever it is you're putting on to your body. So yeah.
Most definitely.
Yeah.
I was talking to someone recently about style and trends, and I think, and maybe this is like an economic thing because, the money is funny. I think
No,
we've
hello.
slowed down a lot with like the micro trends that were happening a couple years ago, where it was like every other day there would be something that had a name that honestly didn't even need a name. It was a little exhausting. And I think
Yeah.
we've slowed down on
Yeah.
that a little bit more,
Yeah.
which I think, although it's probably because of economic reasons, from a style standpoint could be good for
Mhm.
a lot of people, especially younger people who are probably
Mhm.
developing their style because there's less that they feel like they need to keep up with and they can just play a little bit
Mhm.
more.
Mhm.
So I hope that
Mhm.
that continues.
I agree. I agree because I really did not like all of those trends coming out. I also think, I mean, I'm trying to keep it copacetic, but it's like I think there's a certain demographic that really struggles with personal identity. And that is where we often see these trends come from. And I do think when you are not experiencing real life challenges, not only challenges, but also just real life things that you need to develop yourself for the sake of, it becomes very hard to recognize yourself in the midst of everyone else, you know? And I think this demographic sometimes struggles with that because they don't have these like real life experiences to kind of back the way that they see the world and the way that they see themselves in the world. So yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
It's so much of style comes from living. I think
Yeah.
Kendra had posted a video on
Yeah.
TikTok about that a couple months ago. Kendra, who was recently on the podcast, we love
Yeah.
her. She had posted a video talking about how so much of style comes from not like
Mhm.
trying to recreate something, but from living and living
Mhm.
your life and
Mhm.
understanding what works for you,
Mhm.
which is so important. Okay, so I've officially entered my convenience era. I just do not have the capacity for a 12-step wellness and supplement routine right now, and that's exactly why I've been loving Groons. If you haven't heard of them, Groons are a convenient, comprehensive formula packed into a snack pack a day. This isn't a multivitamin, a greens gummy, or a prebiotic. It's all of those things and then some at a fraction of the price. And bonus, it tastes great. I keep a pack in my bag at all times. It's become one of those non negotiables I actually look forward to taking, which, if you've ever choked down a bunch of pills or a chalky greens powder, you know that's saying something. And unlike most multivitamins that only give you 7 to 9 vitamins, Groons have 20 plus vitamins and minerals, plus 60 nutrient dense and whole food ingredients. They're vegan, nut free, gluten free, dairy free, and have no artificial colors or flavors. You can even choose a low sugar or sugar free option. But what sold me was how it supports everything my body needs: gut health, energy, skin, brain function, all in one little gummy. And the science is there. The ingredients are backed by over 35,000 research publications. So if you're someone who wants to feel a little more on top of it without adding another complicated routine, give this a try. Visit Gruns.co and use the code LUCKY at checkout for up to 52% off your first order. That's GRUNS.co and use the code LUCKY for up to 52% off your first order. Trust me, this is one of those tiny changes that actually makes a difference. The older I get, the more intentional I am about taking care of my brain health and eating well. When life gets busy, which, let's be honest, is always, I need snacks that work for me, not against me. And that's why I've been reaching for Mosh bars. You might have seen them on Shark Tank. They were created by Maria Shriver and her son, Patrick Schwarzenegger, to spark a conversation about brain health. And they've teamed up with top scientists and nutritionists to formulate something way beyond your average protein bar. Mosh bars are made with ingredients that support brain health, including ashwagandha, lion's mane, collagen, omega 3s, and cognizin, which is a brain boosting ingredient you won't find in any other bar. My favorite flavors are cookies and cream and cookie dough crunch. If you can't tell, I love a cookie vibe, and they are so good. I always keep one in my bag so I can enjoy on the go, which has come in handy on busy days. I also love that every purchase helps fund gender based brain health research through the Women's Alzheimer's movement. If you want to find ways to give back to others and fuel your body and your brain, Mosh bars are the perfect choice for you. Head to moshlife.com/lucky to save 20% off, plus get free shipping on either the bestsellers trial pack or the new plant-based trial pack. That's 20% off plus free shipping on either the bestsellers trial pack or the plant-based trial pack at moshlife.com/lucky. Thanks to Mosh for supporting the show and for making snack time way better.
There was this really good essay on Substack. I don't remember the specific title, but it was about how people are losing their sense of eroticism and in relation to life and living and art. And it was so the way that they wrote it was beautiful, but it was such a reminder to me that people really genuinely are not living life. And that makes me Very sad, actually. It makes me, wonder what the next 15 or 20 years is gonna look like, because I think a lot of people don't challenge themselves to go out and have experiences, so they don't know what they like. They don't know what they don't like. They know what they're trying to avoid, and I think that's a really big difference for sure.
Yeah, I think sometimes when we're so focused on avoiding discomfort, particularly because I think oftentimes that's where avoidance comes from,
Mhm.
we also avoid things
Mhm.
that could be really great or things that we
I
can learn
agree.
so much from.
Yeah.
And when you think about living and having experiences, what are the types of experiences that you prioritize?
Ooh, I don't know if I have any that I prioritize. I think what I prioritize depends on, like, where I am in life, and I think right now I wanna prioritize joy. I wanna prioritize play. I wanna prioritize freedom and expression. Maybe, like, last year, I wanted to prioritize rest and peace, really for real peace, and wellness and all of those things. So I think what I prioritize depends on the the way that I'm living my life in the moment.
Mhm.
Yeah.
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 I think that that's a really beautiful answer, though, because I sometimes, and I think social media is a big part of this as well, we often try to look outside to figure out what it is we need. And
Mhm.
so much of living is figuring out, okay, what are my needs and how can I
Mhm.
meet them? And that
Mhm.
does change from season
Yeah.
to season.
Yeah, I agree. I think, I think people get really stuck in this loop of prioritizing, like, the material things where they're like, "Oh, I just wanna be rich," or, "Oh, I just wanna be famous," or, "Oh, I just wanna be whatever," which is fine. I mean, if those are things you want, that's fine. I'm not judging you, or maybe I am. But I also think that there's, like, such a fun activity to kind of, like, name different things that you wanna prioritize outside of maybe just, like, the things that people expect you to prioritize, Like, of course, everyone wants to be rich, everyone wants stability, you know what I'm saying? Like, that's what you really want. You don't I don't know if you really want richness more than you just want the stability you think comes with richness, Or it's like, I don't know if you really want fame more than you want, like, the love that you think that famous people get? So I think when we can get, like, really granular with the things that we want, that's when you really find, like, some real magic, actually. So,
For
yeah.
sure. Like, what is that core need that we're trying to
Yeah.
fill?
Yeah, yeah.
And often it comes down to like you said, things like stability, safety,
Mhm.
belonging. It's
Mhm.
like there's a few, like, core things that I think
Mhm.
we're always, in need of
Yeah, for sure.
and looking for as humans.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So I would love to also come back to a conversation we touched on a little bit in the
Mhm.
in the style convo about body,
Mhm.
because you also last year had shared some of your experiences having a breast reduction, as
Ooh,
well as
yes.
some of the complications that had
Yeah.
stemmed from that. And
Yeah.
you're now over
Yeah.
a year out from that. Wanted to
Yeah.
see how you were doing now.
Yeah. Wow, what a year it has been, actually.
Yeah,
But so I think with any surgery, you could expect complications. I think if you go into plastic surgery thinking that you're not gonna have complications, that's very silly of you. Majority of the time, there's not gonna be complications, especially with I mean, most doctors don't wanna get sued, you know? But I think with me specifically, it just happened to be luck of the draw type of thing, and, I think this actually does go back to your question about, like, why do you feel lucky, Because I think in that moment, I was feeling very unlucky, like, I was like, "Oh my god, what is going on? I don't understand," all of these things, um, but then it's like, I was going through that, and then I also was, like, experiencing some, like, difficulties from my last relationship and, like, all of these things, and I was just like, "You know what? How can I find the luck in this?" Like, what exactly am I being taught or shown here? And I genuinely do think that I was put in that situation to kind of learn a lot about, like, a true metamorphosis experience in a way, Like, it was like my body was going through such an intense change, and I don't think it could handle all of what was happening at that time, And I really had to, like, go slow with the way that I was healing, like, it was not a fast process at all, but in a way, I feel like I learned a lot about the true nature of what it means to, like, heal, you know? Like, I think it was so cool after the fact seeing how my body healed itself, you know? Like, it was like my doctors, I mean, we were doing stuff to kind of maybe help the healing process, but I remember one day I called my nurse and I was like, "Hey, like, what is the prognosis on this? Because like, I wanna be realistic about what I'm thinking." And she was like, "Honestly, it's gonna be a while. Like, it's gonna take your body a second to kind of catch up to the healing process," but she was like, "You are gonna heal." And she was like, "I know that it feels like it's not happening or it looks like it's not happening, but it's happening. You just have to, like, really trust your body right now." And I remember when she said that, I just started bawling because I was like, "Yeah, I don't trust my body." Like, I don't trust myself to, like, get through this, you know? But then it was, like, a reminder that, like, every time you haven't trusted yourself to get through a difficult situation, you've gotten through it, you know? So, it was such a like, looking back on it now, I'm like, "Wow, what a beautiful, like, heart-wrenching experience I went through," but also, I learned so much, you know? Like, and I feel like I don't think I would've had the same insight about healing and growth and change if I didn't have that experience, you know? So yeah, I feel a lot better now. I
That's
feel a lot happier now. I'm like very I always loved the results overall. I think it was just like that one thing that happened. But I love my results as well. So yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And I mean, honestly, through what I'm sure was such a hard time, like,
Yeah.
kudos to you for looking for
Yeah.
what the luck was in that
Yeah.
moment, because 'cause I'm sure it could not have been
Oh, child,
easy.
it was very hard. It was
Yeah.
very hard. I feel like I really have a newfound respect for people who go through very difficult things with their body, you know? Like, I feel like that was my first time ever getting a major surgery like that, and that was my first so I guess it was my first time also ever experiencing a crazy complication like that, and wow, I have a very, very profound respect for people who maybe have to do this on the day to day or like have to deal with something like that on the day to day or who have like chronic illnesses that they can't that they have to handle on the day to day, you know, like those are all things I feel like you don't really understand how intense they are until you go through it yourself. So yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
That makes me think about some of the ways that my perspectives of wellness have changed because,
Mhm.
as a lot of people who may have been, like, following me or the show know, a lot of my content really started off being very wellness based, and I
Mhm.
still think that wellness
Mhm.
conversations are very important.
Yeah.
And a large part of being well largely is luck for
Oh,
people who have not
yeah,
experienced
absolutely.
some sort of condition or something happening.
Absolutely. Yeah.
It's not a matter of personal failure, which is how the wellness industry often likes to paint
Mhm.
things, and
Mhm.
it's just like we have bodies and they're
Mhm.
sensitive, they're resilient, but they're also sensitive,
Very
and things
sensitive.
happen,
Yeah.
and I think having a healthy body that is able to move and do things,
Yeah.
sure, if you prioritize movement and doing things, that always helps, but that's never
It's
it's
never
not a
the
matter of personal
I
achievement.
agree. I agree. I think, you know, I think being an influencer, someone who's in that space as well, it's hard for me because I think I try to be very delicate in the ways that I discuss wellness because I never want people to think that if you do what I do, you can look like me because that'll never be the case. You know what I'm
Mhm.
saying? And I know that when I see other people, I could do what they do and I would never look like them. Like the point is to look like me. The point should always be to look like you. And the biggest point should always be to feel as good as you possibly can in the body that you have, you know? And I think we lose sight of that a lot. And thankfully for me, I grew up, especially in like my young adult years, with people who were, you know, differently abled activists, disabled activists, like people who really taught me about things like eugenics and like ableism, and it really helped me understand just how sacred the body is and just how personal it is and how it really doesn't belong to anyone except for yourself, especially in conversation, especially in the ways that we discuss them. Like, I think people feel way too comfortable having conversations about people's bodies, and I do think it's very strange. And I think, a lot of people think that they can do everything right to avoid being disabled at some point, when in reality, it's like we live in a world that is constantly actually trying to disable you, that wants you to be disabled so that you have to rely on governments and rely on other people for your care. And the more that we engage in like ableist conversations, the more that they win. The more that we remove ourselves from those conversations, the more that we start to care for everybody, no matter what kind of body they have, the more that we're, really trying to operate as a community that wants to share resources, not for the sake of fixing other people, but just for the sake of sharing, the more that we can like really actually not have to rely on these spaces that want us to be ill, you know what I'm saying? And I think it takes a lot of personal experience to kind of transform the way that you view the body. And I think that experience, I mean, outside of like the beautiful education I've gotten from the people around me, that experience really definitely made me realize like, yeah, this is actually something that no matter what I could have done, it probably would not have been prevented. It's just the luck of the draw, and that's just it. So, yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Things just
Yeah,
they
these things just
happen.
happen. I know. People are always asking me, they're like, "Oh my god, you should see your doctor. He did the," and I'm like, "No, he's one of the top doctors in the country." You know what I'm saying? Like, he is very well respected, and I think when you have a situation that is a 10% likely situation, you just have to pray and see what your luck is gonna be. You can't always try to find blame for what is happening to your body, and I think a lot of times people do that, so yeah.
Yeah, that
Oh.
finding blame piece is huge. I
Oh,
think
so
in
bad.
so many scenarios,
So bad.
people are often looking for someone to blame, and I think it's because as humans, we try to find meaning in
Yeah.
things, but I you can't always find meaning through blame.
Yeah.
You just can't.
I think, especially I think even with the body conversation, like, even going beyond being physically disabled, I think a lot of times we see this same rhetoric, like, that's very harmful when it comes to, like, fat phobia, like, the way that people look at being fat or being plus size or being even just curvy as like a moral failure, it is very scary, because I think a lot of people don't realize just how much your body is trying to keep you alive. And sometimes in keeping you alive, it will have to do certain things like store fat in your body. You know what I'm saying? And like that is the reality for a lot of people. I don't think that that's a moral failure. You know what I'm saying? And there are people who are fat because they're disabled, or people who are disabled because they are fat, and like these are all things that are still valid experiences that we should respect and be kind and gentle when we discuss them, but unfortunately, a lot of people don't have that decorum, so
No, and
yeah.
it's also I think for a while there was a space where it had gotten better, and I think people were more open to just one, I think maybe minding their own business, but
Oh, for
like
sure,
bodies come in so many different ways.
for sure.
And I now it's like we're kind of moving back towards some it's just like
Oh, I feel like we've gone back at this point. Yeah, I feel like the
yeah.
veil has completely been lifted at this point, like, it is very bad, but, I think one thing about it, though, the pendulum always swings.
Mhm.
I think people don't do their readings and their findings, and I think, if you look back in history, being fat at some point was a sign of wealth because you had access to food or because you had access to money that could get you food. I wouldn't be surprised if that happened again. You know what I'm saying? I wouldn't be surprised if we got to the point where being able to have access to food is the luxury, you know what I'm saying? And like I think a lot of people are going to be regretting the day that they were ever fat phobic or that they were ever questioning someone's body just because it looked different than theirs. So, yeah, I
That's
mean,
true.
yeah, we'll see what happens. Hopefully not in my generation, but, who knows at this point? I'm like, "Who knows at this point?" Right?
We don't
Like,
know.
we don't know. So, yeah.
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 It's spooky.
Yeah, it is very spooky, but I just always tell people the pendulum always swings, like, the goalpost is always moving, like, what you think is the standard now may not be the standard later. That's why you can't really focus on it, you can't really focus on what other people want you to be. You have to focus only on how you want to feel in your body, period.
100%.
That's it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this almost kinda goes back to what we were saying earlier about, like, the senses and, like, the tactile thing, like,
Mhm.
a different version of it, because I think we can be very warped by images that we see either on social media or in
Mhm.
entertainment, in the media of people who maybe have a lot of work done or look a certain way
Mhm.
and think that that's normal, but then when you literally just go outside and you look at the world around you, people still look normal, and people
Yeah.
still look every which
Yep.
kind of way when you just, like, go outside
Yep.
and look at how real people are
Yeah.
living, and I think it's gonna be more important than ever that
Oh,
people do that.
absolutely. Absolutely. I really do love the fact that, I try to take a walk in the park every day, and going to the park has really changed my perception of life, actually. I always recommend people take a walk, okay? Because I love going out there and I'm like, "Oh, people touch grass." I love that. People are outside, they're enjoying their lives. They're existing in whatever body that they have. They're not hiding from the world just because they have a roll on their back or because they are using crutches or because they have a wheelchair. Like, people are outside and enjoying the sun. They are existing, you know? And I think a lot of people, especially on the internet, need to remind themselves that people exist. They just exist, and whatever's happening in their life, whatever body that they're in, they're still existing, they're still living, they're still moving forward in however way that they can, and that is your reminder that you can do it too, like, you can just exist. You don't have to be the perfect version of yourself in order to have what it is you want out of life, or in order to just have a good experience in life.
100%.
Yeah.
And I think it's even more important that we continue living and being
Mhm.
outside and in community where we can all, like, exist normally together as much
Mhm.
as possible.
Mhm. Yeah.
Simi, thank you so much for joining
Oh my
me.
god, of
I loved this
course. Yeah, this was so
conversation. It
good.
was so, so
This was
good.
great.
Okay, please let people know where they can find you. Also, please let people know where they can subscribe to your Substack.
Oh my gosh. That's so funny because I was, just telling myself, I was like, "I need to tell people I'm a writer more, but I just
Yes.
don't." But if you want to find me on social media, you can find me at Simi Moonlight on all platforms, except for YouTube. On YouTube, I'm at With Simi, and on Substack it is my first name, Simi, my last name, Muhumuza. I think, like, substack.com/first and last name. I feel like if you search Simi on Substack, you'll find me because I don't think there's a lot of Simis on there. But yeah. And yeah, you'll find me on the interwebs or in real life if you take walks in the park.
Perfect. Perfect. And then we'll make sure we also link everything in the
Of course.
description too so
Of
that
course, of
people
course, of course.
have the links. Thank you for
Yeah.
joining
Thank you
me.
so much.